JT Crowley is Talking Books. On this show, you'll hear from emerging talent and seasoned veterans from around the world. They'll give you their take on the writing process and how to create the secret sauce of page-turning deliciousness. Let's get into that magical mixture of the art and science of creativity. Here's JT Crowley, author of The Smart Kids, and your podcast host.
Good evening. I'm JT Crowley, and joining me today is Dr. Penny Claus. She's the author of the Time Stealers books. She's a veterinary surgeon from Dallas, Texas in the US, where she lives with her family. Her books are available in various formats on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and for those of us that live in the UK, you can order them on Waterstones. But when you have a search for them, you need to search P. Claus. There you go, everybody. In addition to the books we're going to talk about today with Penny Claus, she has written children's stories, and she's also written Christian devotionals, as well as many other books. But today we're going to be talking about the Time Stealers books, the trilogy, and the two books that she's written so far, and hopefully will persuade her to write the third. You never know, everybody. So, Penny Claus, welcome to Talking Books.
Thank you, John. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Penny, your books are very much in the dark fantasy and sci-fi realms. These books are going to be appealing to people who love to follow those genres. Are you a dark fantasist at heart?
I guess I am. That's what I'm writing. I never thought of it in those terms, but I could see where they could have that label. When I wrote the books, I mainly thought of sci-fi in mind. And then I had one of my readers, actually, when they gave a review on it, they mentioned it as a thriller. I thought, okay, well, yeah, that works too. And so the dark fantasy, thriller, sci-fi, I mean, they all could fit. So, but I've never thought of myself as, I guess, intentionally writing in that way.
So when you were a kid, did you enjoy reading that genre, or did you enjoy reading other genres?
When I was a kid, I read books about horses, some mystery books, Nancy Drew, that sort of thing. I'm not sure if when I was a kid, that was many moons ago, so I couldn't really say if I even heard of that genre. I've heard of sci-fi. My dad was into sci-fi, and he had some books from way back then. But I guess it wasn't in my realm, of knowing it was there, so. But no, I wasn't really exposed to it back then. Now, my daughter, especially as she was reading some young adult novels, I would read them along with her just to kind of stay in touch with her, as she grew up, as they go into that independent stage, and, mom and dad are kind of old-fashioned relics, So to keep up with her, I'd read some of them, and some of them did touch on that. But even then, I guess that's the way my mind works. I didn't realize it.
Penny, your husband, David, he works with Clockwork clocks.
Yes.
Was he the one that gave you the inspiration to put the clocks into the books?
He led me into the world of antique clocks and going to the NAWCC meetings. And in that route, that's where I got the inspiration for the books. And he encouraged me. He's helped me with some of the technical type stuff. He helped me with some of the imagery. When the inspiration hit me in one of the clock shows, I call them clock shows, they're district meetings. But they have a huge showroom with a bunch of different kinds of clocks, and you can buy and trade. It's with other people in that clock world, either collectors or they work on them. And it was at one meeting, I was teasing our son. We had drug him down to it because we were hoping that he would have an interest in it. And we bought some grandfather clocks, and we bought a whole bunch of other clocks, and we were running out of room. This was down in Houston, so we had to pack everything in and bring it back. And we teased him because we had a grandfather clock case. And he was a preteen, very slender, tall. He would fit. And we teased him that we're going to, put him in there. Well, of course we didn't. But we found a way to get everything in there and get everybody back. But it got me to thinking, I remember it hitting me, what would live in clockwork clocks? And how would they look? How would they act? What could they do to people? And that just started a whole string of thought. And on the way back from Houston, I started writing the first draft of the first one. And I asked, I would bounce ideas off Dave and say, well, what do you think about this? And he'd be like, what about this? And then we just kind of back and forth. And that's how this series came to be.
Anybody else inspire you to?
Oh my goodness. Once we reached out to some of the people, in the clockwork community. There's a lady that she read some of the work. In fact, she helped me edit the first edit of the first draft, or I thought it was the polished works, but and she's really involved in the NAWCC, and she's done a lot of writing on her own, more technical writing. But she went through it and she kind of helped me with it and encouraged me and made some points, also about some of the detail and some of the phrasing and stuff like that. And they encouraged me when the books originally came out and I took them to the clock shows. I gave some away as door prizes. They give a lot of door prizes after each of the educational meetings. And some of the readers there encouraged me. They would say, hey, I really enjoyed this. And especially down in Houston, the one that runs the meeting down there, I gave him originally to read, so he knew what he was giving away. And he said he really liked it. And he was telling, so all these people were telling other people about it, especially if they got the books, as a door prize. And they're like, what's this? I was actually in one of those educational meetings at the end of it. And a guy in front of me got the book. And the lady next to him was a real big reader. And she's been my biggest fan. And he got it. She goes, it's so good. And he goes, oh, okay. Like, okay, he's not going to just trash it. He's going to actually read it. So that community has really, really been supportive and encouraging. So
Fantastic,
in fact,
isn't it?
I'm sorry?
That's fantastic.
Yes. And that has really made me more confident and encouraged me. Sure. And they're waiting for the third book. So, I'm working on it.
Coming to that.
Okay.
Because listeners, when you go and have a look at Penny Claus's books, there are 2 books in the trilogy that she's done so far. You'll see all the story about the grandfather clocks, the pocket watches, the mechanical regulators. They are fantastic. But of course, there's something in some of those clocks. And I'm going to go on to that now with Penny, and we're going to explore them. So the books, Penny, they're not just about clockwork clocks, are they? There's time wraiths as well as timekeepers. And some of these timekeepers are evil timekeepers, aren't they? What gave you the idea, you've already touched upon it, to put all 3 together into this fabulous trilogy series?
Thank you for the compliment. To build a story, you have to have your adversaries as well as your your the good guys, the bad guys, the reason why the good guys are good and the bad guys are bad. And in this element, the wraiths, who are the beings that live in the clockwork clocks. So the to develop the story, I mean, the world was easy to develop, but the plot, to make it interesting, to make it function, you had to kind of read into the darker realms, of humanity and of groups in general. Because as I stated in one of the books, that out of every group, you're going to have your good ones and your bad ones. And that's true in humans, and that's true with the time wraiths as well. So the main thing, and especially pointing out in some of the details on some of the clocks, is to encourage people to look at the clockwork clocks, to be aware of them. When you boil it down, I have a story, yes. I'm enjoying writing it, I'm enjoying sharing it, but I'm also trying to make people more aware of the antique clocks, because there's a lot of room for people to join, into like the NAWCC, into collecting these antique clocks. And there's going to become a shortage of the people that work on it. That's an older generation, and it's about to be a lost art. So I'm also trying to encourage young people. And I've had grandparents buy the books for their grandchildren, like preteen,
Yeah.
and to try to encourage them. Now, it's a good story too, but at least they say, and to encourage them into this. And when we see young people at these meetings, oh my goodness, it's just a joy, to share, this ancient technology, in a way, because it's starting to fall by the wayside. So that's the deepest thing about these books, is trying to make people aware of them. And I get feedback, apparently it's working. People are noticing them more. When the tower clocks came into the storyline, where you get your biggest of the wraiths in them, that have a specific function. I had one lady that I knew for years, and she was from the London area. And she helped me with, kind of get an understanding of how London lays out and some of the areas and stuff like that, to give me some insight,
Is that London in the UK?
I'm sorry?
Is that London in the UK?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, London, England. Yeah.
Because we will have UK listeners.
Yeah, there's probably a lot more. But yes, London, England, because Big Ben, the Clockworks there. I was needing that to be part of the story, and so she helped me with a lot of that. And then after she read the one of the final drafts, because I want to get her input into what I put, to make sure it's as accurate as possible without me actually visiting there, which I'd love to at some point. And when she went to England, she always went back once a year to see family. She said, so after I read those books, I noticed these clocks more, that they've always just kind of been there, and now there's more interest, and she'd send me pictures of some of the interesting clocks in that area. It was just awesome, that she shared that with me. So I really appreciated her input.
Wow, it's that amazing story. Now, I once read, Penny, that time wraiths, quote, are a race of wraiths-like beings who are enforcers of the speed force. Would you like to be a time wraith? And if so, would you be a good one, or would you be a mischievous one? Now, I think for fun, you might be bordering on the little mischievous ones. What do you think?
They have all their personalities. But as far as being one, they have a very interesting makeup that are revealed in the books, step by step, because this is a revelation of what they are, who they are, where they came from, as the books kind of go through it. So if I would like to be one, I think it'd be an interesting world, because you have so many abilities in that type of being. And mischievous, oh, possibly, but not bordering on the bad. I mean, that's bad. And those are usually, they try to capture and put in the timekeeper's vaults to keep them out of trouble. So, but
Yes,
yeah, it'd be interesting to be one.
yes, you've got that in your books. You know, as long as the clocks keep running, the time wraiths generally stay within the clocks.
Generally,
Books.
that's their source of energy. Yes.
Really? Now that's
Yeah.
fascinating. That's really fascinating. But if I can just take you back to, say, your first book, The Timekeeper's Chronicles.
Yes.
Your first book in your amazing trilogy, and I'm quite happy to use that superlative. The plot reveals a nefarious ploy that could unnerve human society and desolate the human race by altering, how shall I say, the perception of time.
Yes.
Would you tell the listeners, without giving too much away, a little bit more about this? Because this is the main plot of the first book, isn't it?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah. When a wraith interacts with a human directly, what it does, let me back up a little bit. You know, and I know everybody's experienced this, when you have a sense of time either just disappearing, you know, like you're doing something, then all of a sudden you realize that, you know, you think 30 minutes has passed, it's been 2 hours. Or, you know, just that displacement of, you know, your mind was elsewhere and you just didn't realize, like, made you late, you know, like you're just, oh, I'm gonna do this little thing, you know, before I leave for work, and all of a sudden you look up and you're late, you know. Or you know, just that kind of feeling of where you thought you had more time and it wasn't there. And that's what they do, is when they interact with humans, that's they throw off that perception of time to where it can really mess you up, you know, make you late, where, or, you know, if you're driving, this happens, you could get in an accident because you're not, you know, aware of what's going on. Or somebody could make a mistake, you know, like at a nuclear factory, you know, you know, where they push the wrong button, you know, because they weren't paying attention, you know, or something like that. And that's how they can affect people. And that's how they can cause problems for the human race.
Your main character, you know, is Grant Stone and Charlotte Wright.
Right.
Were they originally a figment of your imagination, or are they loosely based on people that you know? How do you create your characters? How did you create them?
I guess in the attributes that I needed for the story, especially at the beginning of it. And then after that, once they're developed, they kind of form a character of their own, you know, that you just kind of follow them around, you know, when you're writing. But I needed somebody very strong in the male role, the male protagonist, and that somebody who you could believe that has been around a very long time, who has been taking care of these entities, you know, these wraiths, for quite a bit of time. Then I needed somebody that would come in and would be desperate enough to need to have this world that he's been in for so long explained to her. And so I needed kind of a, I guess, I don't want to say desperate heroine, but someone who just needed to know she wasn't crazy. And then having that him help her with it helps me explain to the readers these beings, and then eventually she helps him understand more about them, and that's how that partnership works. So they're totally a figment of my imagination. I can't think of a person that I said, okay, I'm going to use them and frame it around them. I really can't. I was just looking for people that had those attributes that I needed to tell the story.
Are your characters real to you when you're writing the story? Do they
Oh
travel
yeah.
in your head all day long?
Well, they're crowded out by some of the other characters that I have. I wrote a short story not too long ago, because I was having a lot of people ask me, well, when is the third, Time Stealers coming out? Or when is the next part of the Cloud Riders coming out? Stuff like that. I kind of threw a short story together of what kind of is going in my imaginary worlds, and how I have a lot of them clamoring for attention. Yeah, it sounds like you're crazy, but they do seem to form, when they become fully formed, a personality of their own. And, for the longest time, if I haven't written on a story, it's like they're going, hey, hello, you need to add to us. We're sitting here, we're standing here, like a video game, where you just let a character stand.
What do you want us to do next? Come on,
Yes,
mate, for the
exactly.
next scene
Direct
here.
us. And then, and then, of course, their personalities, when they emerge, have them help you with the direction they need to go. Because let's say I took one of the characters who along has been very framed as a good character, and all of a sudden make them bad. To me, that just doesn't fit in well. Some of them can maybe go off track for a bit, then they come back on, but just to totally reverse and go bad, I just find that disturbing, to do that to them.
Yes, I can understand that as an author. That's pretty much the same. They keep bothering you. They're there all the time and say, will you hurry up and finish the book, the trilogy, please?
Yes. Well, I'm glad you feel the same way I do. I don't feel so nuts now.
And it's like, in your second book, which is the second in this amazing trilogy, the book Hope Eternal, I'm picking up that Charlotte starts to question her relationship with Grant a bit here.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, is this Penny putting a little bit of romance into the book here? Is she spinning romance? Is there something going on here? Is there?
Yes. Definitely. I mean, when you have two people that went through a very hard time, together, they form a bond. Now, whether that bond is going to develop into something more, between two people, kind of depends, on them and the situation. But with every story, to make it fuller and make it more realistic, I mean, here you have, a very lonely guy. He's been lonely for a long time. And you have this person who is the first of her kind, kind of coming together, and they go through all this hardship together. Then, they have a common bond, and what happens in relationship. I mean, you hear about people that in the real world that get together, in a workplace or something like that. They have a common relationship. But is it right? And that's where the questions come in. Is that enough to base a relationship on? So I was just trying to put a different, not a different level, but a fuller level to the story, as far as trying to make it as realistic as possible.
And that's important, and I totally agree. And of course, Charlotte is, the only timekeeper, isn't she? Which is fascinating.
Female.
Only female, yes,
Yes.
timekeeper.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to ask you a question here, Penny. Looking back on your life, do you regret not writing earlier on? I do.
When you're younger and you have so much ahead of you, and of course, you also think, okay, with a writer, you have to be really good to get enough money to support yourself, and my family, especially my dad, he told me from when I was in junior high on, you're going to college. You're going to get an education and whatever you want. So because of, I enjoyed working with animals, that's where I wound up going to vet school. But I was writing before then. I wrote short essays when I was young. I remember getting like second prize for one or something like that. It was a Mother's Day little short thing. And I would just run imaginary worlds through my head all the time, So I was set up to start writing, but it was like I needed to get into something that I knew would be like a service-based. And my dad, although he eventually in my later years kind of encouraged me when he learned that I was starting to actually write things to like share. But I think at that point, he just wanted to make sure I could make a living, So, and I've enjoyed veterinary medicine. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I still wanted to write. I wrote pet articles for a small town newspaper for a while. I wrote client communication sheets, to educate clients, So I wrote children's stories back when, I started when I was pregnant with my first one, my daughter, and that's the conglomerate of children's stories that's out there. But so it's always there in the background. But now it's like breaking through that wall of sharing it with other people, that fear of, okay, they're going to tell me, don't quit your day job, so when I broke through that, I started writing more. I'm actually hoping that once I retire from veterinary medicine and go into writing full time, that hopefully I've got enough traction, to be able to make it work, So although I love sharing stories, and making money isn't my primary thing, it sure is nice, to have a little bit to work off of. I'm sure you understand that as an author.
Oh, sure do.
Yeah. So in a way,
when we're getting the third book.
Yeah.
When we're getting the third book, Penny.
The third book, actually, it's written. I'm going through and I'm doing the initial proofread. It's in its rough draft, probably about the second rough draft now. I still have a little bit more work to do in it. I find I write pretty much a basic skeleton and I flesh it out each time I go through it. And after that, I'm going to send it to my editor and let her do her bit in polishing it up. And then I need to decide what I'm going to do with it. The people who put out that I republished the Time Stealers through, the first and second one, I'm not sure if I'm going to go through them again or if I'm going to go through Amazon again. That's where they originally were. Or I'm still trying to decide what I'm going to do with them when to get, out into the public. So if I get a traditional publisher interested in this, then maybe they'll help me with that. But that's, people are trying, to help me, get that in front of them. But as far as now, it's like, okay, I hadn't heard anything yet, so I'll figure out what I'm going to do to get it out there.
Yeah. That's absolutely fantastic. Dr. Penny Claus, thank you so much for coming on my show, Talking Books. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. I've learned so much about clocks, about time rats, about timekeepers when I've been looking at your book. Everybody, this is a phenomenal trilogy. And I have to say, I have been blown away and taken back by the depth that Penny goes into with her storyline and the twists and the turns and the mystique and the excitement as I turn the pages. It is a real turnover page for all of you guys, especially those of you who love dark fantasy and sci-fi. So it's just for me to say, Dr. Penny, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed my little chat with Dr. Penny today. And as I said, you can go and search on P. Claus for her books on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And if you're in the UK, like me, you can go and search on Waterstones and they'll order it for you. But all it leaves me to say now is I'm JT Crowley. Thanks for listening, watching, wherever you are in the world. Until next time, stay safe.